guys, welcome once again to the Coffee and Heroes YouTube show. Slightly later one this week. I usually record these on a Saturday, edit them Saturday night and then put them out on a Sunday. This week one's unfortunately a different one for me. I did receive some bad news. So unfortunately my grandmother passed away on Saturday morning, which was quite tough to be honest, and I wasn't really going to do a show at all this week. I was just sort of, it's been a pretty troublesome couple of days. I'm recording this on the Monday. Obviously I went to see my grandmother in the hospital and, you know, it was tough, but, you know, I have a good community of people around me. You know, a lot of guys who come to the store have become really good friends. Even if you're only there once a month, you come in, you say hello, we have a quick chat. Those kind of things always really do help. And between that and I'll be honest, one of the reasons I decided to do this as well was yesterday I didn't do an awful lot. I, you know, had a quieter day, a slightly more reflective day, and I used a lot of that to read and just sort of immerse myself in the comics world. And, you know, I had a pretty big pull list this week. You know, I had almost 30 titles and it seemed like a good opportunity to just put a bit of music on in the background, forget the outside world, forget everything happening around us, and just sort of lose myself in comics for the day. And it really helped. It really did. It was, you know, a great variety of titles, whether it was DC, Marvel, indie. You know, I read a lot of good stuff yesterday and some really, you know, quite apt titles given what, you know, the news, unfortunately, and the events that have happened, you know, to the family recently. So I just thought I'd do a quick one today. You know, I'm not going to go into a lot of news. I'm not going to go into a lot of entertainment stuff. I'm just going to go over the three titles that sort of meant quite a lot to me this week, and then I'll go through the invoice just because I do always like letting people know what's coming out soon as well, and it's sort of another reason I decided to do this. So I will kick off with the three titles though, as I say. Two indie, one DC that really meant a lot this week. I mean, this one I read before, you know, all this happened and everything else, but I just thought Three Jokers ended wonderfully well. I thought the art was stellar the whole way through the series. I thought the writing was on point. I liked how it ended. I thought it tied up what was essentially a 3-issue miniseries and essentially just another Batman case, if you think about it. You know, it's Three Jokers was one of those titles that I think for a long time people thought it was going to, you know, shake up the DC universe and that kind of thing. I don't think it was ever going to do that. I think it was just a really well told detective story. And what was cool about it was certainly in those last 10 pages, it sort of flipped a bit of Batman Joker mythology on its head. It played off of the Killing Joke really, really well and gave it a new dimension. There was also stuff that happened in issue 3 that really made me want to go back and read issue 2 again. So once I finish the full pull list this week, I think I've 2 titles left. Once I finish that, I'm actually going to indulge in a reread of this. So excellent work all around from Jeff Johns on writing duties, Jason Fabok on art, Brad Anderson on colours. You know, we've got all 3 issues in the store. Obviously, we ordered big on this. We'll be putting together some packs of issue 1, 2, and 3 together, just in case you're late to it and you just want to read the complete story rather than waiting that sort of monthly. But I can't recommend it enough. Thoroughly brilliant, premium title, AAA, and, you know, if you like the single issues, as I say, there's going to be packs put together. If you're more of a trade waiter, I believe it's out at the end of this month. So cannot recommend it enough, guys. Three Jokers. These were 2 that I read yesterday, 2 indie titles, and I have to admit these really meant something to me, especially the last one, which will probably be my pick of the week. But the first one was Wind, number 5. So this is written by James Tynion IV, you know, seems to be everywhere at the moment. Art by Michael Dialnes. And Wind was one of those titles I've enjoyed from the start. It was a bit of a surprise release. They didn't really solicit it in the way that normal comics are solicited. They decided to just sort of surprise release it 2 weeks before it came out, and, you know, you just ordered it at the last minute. And Wind is essentially a great all ages title, and it's all about being different in the world and finding a way to fit in. It's all about finding friends and people who are there for you, you know, from all different backgrounds, because it's the right thing to do. It's to do with not letting one thing about you define you. And it's all wrapped up in this wonderful all ages, you know, fairy tale almost. And I was really gutted when I saw it was only a 5-issue miniseries. It's always a bigger issue. It is a $5 issue each time, but it's at least 40 pages. It's always bigger than any other release that week, unless it's something like an annual, or the death metal tie-ins, for example, have all been rather big. But I was really gutted about that. But you get to the last page, and I'm not gonna obviously spoil how it ends, I suppose, but I just got to this, and it really made me happy when I saw this. Wind Will Return. So they're adopting the model. I quite like this in comics at the moment, certainly with indie stuff. I think that it's a case of, rather than announcing an ongoing series and then it not doing well sales wise, and then the story's left unfinished and we're left unsatisfied as readers, because essentially you're always taking a chance on a comic that they're going to get to tell their whole story. It's such a unique industry in that sense. But with Wind, I was really glad to see that it was announced as 5 issues. It's done really well critically. It's done well sales-wise. I believe it was one of Boom's biggest ordered series, although I'm sure the upcoming Power Rangers stuff will probably, take that mantle. But brilliant series. Really can't recommend it enough. Trade should be due soon. It's one of those Boom titles that went back to sort of second print, third print, fourth prints, that kind of thing. So, even if you fancy just giving issue 1 a go, I'm pretty sure we have issue 1s in the store. And I'm so chuffed that it's coming back. And again, it's a wonderfully universal tale, about being different and, not letting that stop you in the world, and, finding a family, almost of misfits, but, you come together and you all make each other better. So just, again, it was just a really great read, but just, really nice message as well. But the one that stood out for me the most this week, and I read this late last night. I was going to bed at sort of midnight and haven't been sleeping very well the past few nights. And I put on the Whiplash soundtrack, which is a really great jazz soundtrack. I was reading for this. This is an original graphic novel. It's called Blue and Green. This is by Ram V, he's been getting more and more prominence these days through DC at the moment. He's writing Justice League Dark. He's been doing bits and pieces on Swamp Thing here and there. He's taken over Catwoman. But his indie stuff is really, really exceptional. There's a previous title he wrote called These Savage Shores, which is great. But this was an original graphic novel for Image. With this one, the artist on it, I'm probably going to murder all of these pronunciations, and I apologize in advance. There's a couple of Indian artists work on this. So the main artist is Anand RK. But what's great about this as well is there's 5 names on the front, and I have to give everybody credit for this book, because it is simply one of the most beautiful things I've ever held in my hand. You've got John Pearson as color artist. You've got Aditya Bidikar as letterer, and the lettering in this is phenomenal. And Tom Miller as designer. So Blue and Green, as I say, one of the reasons it sort of meant a lot to me was that the main story follows a musician called Eric Dieter. He's a guy who was seen as this prodigy coming through when he was at school. He was one of those, he's going to make it, big kind of kids, but it never quite happened for him. He moved away from home. He's now a music teacher, because, those who can't do, teach, as they say. And he comes back home because his mother died. And he comes back to the funeral, and there's a lot of stuff in here about past memories and experiences you've had with those people. But he ends up coming across, his mother was a big music fan as well, and she had this room where she kept all these things, because as we all know, parents never like to throw things away. And he comes across this photograph. And Eric considers himself an absolute connoisseur of the jazz scene. He knows every face, he knows every song, he knows every, speakeasy club, through the 60s, 70s, 80s, etc. But he comes across this photo of a trumpet player, and he has no idea, saxophone player, beg your pardon. And he has no idea who this guy is. And he starts, following the trail and trying to track down who this guy was. It becomes a bit of a detective story at that point. But there's tons of psychological stuff in here as well, and tons of stuff about, the pressure of realizing your potential, and, is that a good thing? Will you drive yourself mad chasing it? It is just a thoroughly brilliant book, and I cannot get over how well designed it is, how good the art is, the colors, the storytelling. This was an exceptional read. I mean, I've talked a lot about Pulp, which is by, and rightly so, which is by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. And I thought there would be no competition for that as best original graphic novel of the year. But this, from a first reading, this matches it. And I'm really looking forward to a second reading. It really worked well with the Whiplash soundtrack as well, as I say, because Whiplash is a movie all about pushing yourself and wanting to be the best, and, you know, the things that you lose around you and the sort of normality of life you give up in chasing this dream. And I honestly can't talk highly enough about this. One reading, one sitting, mesmerized from start to finish, and I really can't wait for a second read. So I'm really going to be jumping into that again. As I say, guys, original graphic novel, never came out in single issues, and I cannot recommend it enough. It is one of the best things I've read in a long time. And again, it was quite apt just with the stuff at the start with the funeral and you know, remembering all those good times you had with people, you know. So highly recommend it. With copies in store, exceptional. So that's blue and green. So as I said, those were my favourites from this week. I'm just going to go through the invoice quickly just for what's due out this week. Of course, the original joke comes in. Is deceased out? No, it's not. I'm close to giving up at this point. And I've sent another email. I've got another generic response of when we know, we'll tell you. Even though number 5 is supposed to be out this week, I believe it's out in the States. It's just more and more frustrating. It's now a total, I believe, of 140 issues we have paid for and are waiting to be sent to us, which is just, as a business as well, ridiculously frustrating. But away from the negativity and onto the positivity, there is a lot of good stuff still coming this week. So we've got the Alien original screenplay number 4 coming. That's a 5-issue mini-series that, you know, is very popular in store. We've got the next part of Amazing Spider-Man 51.LR, so those are the last remains issues. Batman 102 this week. So 101 was a big hit in store, great transition issue, setting up what James Tynion is now doing, and thoroughly looking forward to 102. We've got The Boys, Dear Becky, number 6. So again, obviously with how popular the TV show is at the moment, how much people are going back and reading the original graphics, it's good to see that doing well as well. We've got a pretty massive title coming out this week we've talked about for a while, which is Crossover. So Crossover is a new creator-owned independent series from Image Comics by Donny Cates and art by Jeff Shaw. If you've never read their previous collaboration, God Country, do yourself a favour and do it. It is brilliant. But what's cool about this is we've got the cover A's coming in. We've got Rand Stegman cover B's as well. But we've got what are called these NiceCon exclusive variants coming in. Now these are ones that there's a con that takes place in England every year called NiceCon. And it's predominantly organised by a gent called Jeff Chattel, and he owns a few stores in England, Close Encounters, the stores are called. And a while back, he reached out to some artists, got some original artwork done, and sold the artwork off with the intention being that one store, this was during lockdown, I should say. The intention was that he was going to set up signings for stores, and the money made from the original art was then going to pay for these signings. So it was going to be, you know, sending over an artist to a store. It was all about regenerating interest in your store once it got open again after lockdown. And it was a really lovely gesture. We, of course, you know, registered our interest. But with things being what they are, signings at the moment are impossible. You know, you can't cram loads of people into your store, which is essentially what a signing does. It attracts crowds. So what they did was they commissioned Ben Oliver to do a limited print run, a cover for Crossover number 1, and it was going to be limited to 500 copies. So we have 25 of them coming in because, again, we had registered our interest, and about 12 of them are already spoken for. But if it's something that you would like, as I said, it's exceptionally limited. It's being sold at cover price, I should say, as well. I do know it's up to places what they sell it for. That's completely up to them. But we're selling it at cover price. So it's a $4 title. It'll be £3.80 bagged and boarded. So if it's something that you'd like, get in touch with us because they are going to be limited, as I say. But beyond that, Crossover is awesome. I was lucky enough to get a advanced PDF of it one of the few times I'll read digital comics. We've got new Firepower next week, which is number 5. Absolutely loving that, by Kirkman and Chris Samney. Hellblazer Rise and Fall number 2 is next week, so the second part of the Tom Taylor, Derek Robertson mini-series for DC Black Label. What else have we got? We've got Justice League 56 coming, so that's the next part of the Death Metal tie-ins. Another big one launching next week is Mighty Morphin number 1. So a lot of people have been looking at entry points for getting into Power Rangers in the store. And this looks like it's going to be, you know, ground zero, perfect jumping on point. It's going to be 2 titles. There's Mighty Morphin and there's Power Rangers. Mighty Morphin hits this week. Then I think it's in 2 weeks' time you get Power Rangers. And then 2 weeks after that, Mighty Morphin 2. Then 2 weeks after that, Power Rangers. So if you're looking at getting into it, I think it'd be a good time. There's another great indie title we're looking forward to this week called Origins that looks really, really good. So keep an eye out for that. We've got The Question, The Deaths of Vic Sage. So the Black Label Collected Edition coming out of that. Rise of Ultraman number 3 coming out. Been really enjoying that through Marvel Comics. Spy Island number 3. Great Dark Horse series. Been really hampered by release scheduling, but really, really good title. We've got Star Wars number 8 coming, so a lot of people really enjoying the Star Wars universe at the moment. We've got Sweet Tooth, The Return, so that's a Vertigo title. Well, Sweet Tooth was a Vertigo title. This is coming out under DC Black Label. But this promises to be almost like a remix of Sweet Tooth, and it's good for new readers, but older, you know, people who have read the original will get something out of it as well. We've got Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Batman Hush coming as well. Another big Marvel release this week as well, Thor number 9. So this welcomes Nick Klein back onto the art after taking well, not taking a break, I suppose, but getting ahead in the art. So he took a step away from Thor for number 7 and number 8 for this great 2-issue tale. We've still got 7 and 8 in store. Really recommend that. I think the artist was Aaron Cooter, but it was a really, really feel-good sort of 2-issue story arc. There's a great trade paperback coming out this week, Undone by Blood. I know Keith absolutely loves it and raves about it. That's an Aftershock one. It's a cowboy tale. Walking Dead Deluxe is back this week. So from here on in, Walking Dead Deluxe will be fortnightly. There was a month between issue 1 and issue 2 just to give people time to decide whether they wanted to jump on it or not. We do still have some number 1s in store, so if you fancy jumping onto that, we can get you sorted. There's a new Web of Venom Empire's End number 1. These are one-shots. They're always pretty important to the overall Venom story that Donny Cates is weaving, but I get the feeling that more and more they're going to be related to the upcoming Keenan Black event. So going to be worth picking that up. There's a new Wolverine title coming out called Wolverine Black, White and Blood, which I believe is going to be anthology based and then different creators on it each issue. Got X-Men number 14, so next part of X of Swords coming out. I should say Marauders is this week as well for those who are following X of Swords. And then one last one I'd certainly recommend is Year Zero Volume 2 number 1 comes out. Really love the first arc of this. This was another example of what I was saying with releasing something as a number 1, as a first volume, seeing if it sells well and if so, telling more stories. The first trade of this is in store. It's written by Benjamin Percy. Brilliant, brilliant title. And it's from AWA Studios. So volume 1 is in store in the trades, and then number 1 of volume 2 kicks off this week. So yeah, so as I say, there's plenty to look forward to this week, and even if Deceased is not amongst it. So yeah, I may be in the store bits and pieces this week. As I say, there's a few sort of personal things to take care of. Vicky's been amazing through all this, and she's you know, rock solid looking after the store and so forth. So if I'm not in there, you know, hope everyone out there is keeping well. If not, hopefully see you guys in store. So stay safe out there and take it easy.